Or if you're looking at things from like music, such as sound, vibration, and like string, like instruments like that, wind, all of those things play a major part. But what does that actually mean to us when we actually look at it? Those are basically blueprints of everything that we see in existence. Most of you have heard of atom, am I correct? So an atom is basically, that's the smallest form you're going to get of anything in existence, and it's been scientifically proven. It's not a belief, it's not something that's a theory or anything, it's been proven. So we all consist of what? Atoms. So when you look at an atom, I love how this whole thing has been here from the beginning. An atom is constructed of three parts, which is proton, neutron, and electron. That's what an atom consists of. When you actually look at the proton, it's basically what? Positive charge. Electron is a what? A negative charge. And then you also have the neutron, which is a neutral charge, basically a neutral state of being. One thing I love about the structure with the atom is in the center of it, some of us, we could look at it as the heart, we could look at it as our inner core. But scientifically, it's called basically a nucleus. And that nucleus basically you have the neutrons that's there, and you also have the proton that's there. But then outside of it, there's a shell that's called a valence shell, where the electron actually orbits around, over and around and under it. So those three are right there. Those are very important when it comes to stabilizing the structure of an atom. So when we look at this, we look at it from a scripture standpoint. If an atom scientifically is the building blocks of matter, and we look at it from a spiritual standpoint, we know what? Adam and what? Eve. When we look at Adam, Adam was considered the first man that was actually here, put on this earth. And what I'm getting at is, let me simplify this. Let me simplify this for you guys. Does everyone have one of the papers so you can actually follow along? Okay. When we look at this part right here, when we look at an atom, you have two atoms. You have an atom of the scientific aspect, such as what I just explained to you, and then you also have atom, meaning the actual physical being of Adam. And when we look at us as human beings, we are actually consisted of three parts, just as God has orchestrated and put in the very beginning, which was order and structure. Where it says in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was manifested into the flesh. We connect that to Genesis chapter 1, when he says, let us create man in our image and after our likeness. And now once we understand that, man came into place, and what was done right there, God gave man instructions. He gave him a commandment, and therefore he gave us instructions to basically reproduce what was actually done, which was thought and spoken into existence. So when we look at this structure right here, we'll understand when we have everything was really started off of relationship. That's just the first part right there, is relationship. Relationships is very important. So with a relationship, you have order, you have structure, you have establishment. These consist of these three, which requires commitment, commandments, and instructions. Commitment is basically, it's an agreement to carry out. In other words, for this ties into, it's commitment to carry out the commandments that God has given us, which is power and authority to legally carry out the instructions, which was the first commandment, which most people aren't aware of. It was to what? Be fruitful and to multiply. In other words, recreate what I have actually designed. When we look at this, we'll see how this all actually tie into place. Let me freestyle this. Everyone can hear me all right? Because I'm not.
Never take the mic.
No, I'm not. I'm honestly not comfortable with like the whole mic, and I like to be free when I'm actually speaking my customers. God has created us to be original. That's how we're supposed to be. Whether it be the elements, they're basically atoms that consist of the same exact kind, just as we're supposed to be. We're supposed to consist of the same exact kind. In other words, consisting of our own identity. When we actually understand who we are as a person, we understand how to actually be able to build relationships with other people in existence. For instance, the first thing is to understand, what are we? Spiritual beings having a human experience, right? When we look at this structure right here, the whole point that I want you guys to actually visualize is, under yourself as a person. A person consists of what? Just as in the scripture, it says, it consists of a name, consists of a body, and a soul and spirit. Those three creates this what? One being. When we look at an atom, it consists of those three, proton, neutron, electron, creating that what? That one atom right there. When we look at these things from a molecular scale and looking at it collectively at the same point, it shows us what we actually see here in existence if we understand how to reproduce. And this is what elements actually do when they actually make relationships or establish relationships with other elements, whether it's the same element or if they're opposite, if there are other elements such as, for instance, water. You know what water is, right? hydrogen, and what? Anybody? No? Exactly. Hydrogen and oxygen. But that means that what has to take place? You can't just have oxygen, 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 oxygen. You need to have what? Hydrogen. Most people aren't familiar with hydrogen being in a class of its own. First of all, it's the first element that's basically there on the periodic table. Second, it's also in its own group, a group of its own. When we look at that, that is very important for us to actually understand who we are as far as a blueprint here on Earth, where basically we are human beings to actually understand our identity and who we are as far as ourselves and also who we are in God. Once we understand who we are as far as being, having a name, having a body, having a soul, and having a spirit, we'll understand how to connect with other people on each and every one of those levels. So when you go to a person, you meet a person, like what's the first thing you ask? Hello, what is your what? You ask them, what is your name? Second part is, okay, what do you do? What do you do leads into the next part where it teaches you to understand yourself as a person, but next up, if you're, now this is where we separate male and female. You understand who you are as what in society, as a man. But in order to do that, you have to understand yourself as a person. Once you understand yourself as a man or a woman, then that leads into you actually becoming something greater than that, which leads into where we establish the relationships. Because once you understand that part, you go to, let's go right here. Person, man, and then eventually a husband when it comes to the opposite sex. This is what I'm trying to get you guys to see. We know what a mother, we know what a father is, right? But before you can become a mother and a father, you have to understand these three principles right here. Being a person, being a man, and then eventually becoming a husband. In order to basically become a husband, you have to be able to relate to a wife. You have to be able to relate to a person on a personal level, understanding them as a person, as a man, and then as a what? Male and female, and then eventually you have husband and wife. But there's certain requirements that have to be met. When you go into that, you'll understand relationship, commitment, partnership, marriage, and then next thing down the line is establishment. Before you could be a father physically, before you could be a mother physically, you have to be able to master these things to end up establishing what? New life, which is a child. The child is the establishment. And what I'm getting at is, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place. Forgive me for that. What you end up getting is an establishment, which is new life. I noticed the power of 3. 3 is a very structured number when we look at things scientifically, whether it's a table that we have, whether it's a chair we have. It supports a lot of the weight, basically, when it comes to maintaining balance, when it comes to gravity and so forth. When we look at this, in order to start a business, the majority of the time you need to have what? 3 people basically to start up a business. I know when I started my nonprofit, they said you have to have at least 3 people in order to have that established. When I look at that, I look at it as, okay, 3. That's very powerful. As a person, we consist of 3. From atoms, protons, neutrons, electrons, those consist of 3. When we look at marriage, it consists of what? 3. You, the man, woman, and then you have God, which is basically the authority. Then when you end up basically going into when you end up courting, and then you have reproduction, that consists of 3 as well. The sperm cell, the fetus, and then that creates what? Life. No, sperm cell and the egg, then you get the fetus. So that's 3. Those 3 basically is understanding all these different dynamics that actually comes along with that. When you understand the power of 3, you'll basically be able to reproduce what God has originally designed us to actually do, which is to reproduce, whether that be reproducing things in the land, such as taking care of the ground, taking care of the earth, because that's what He instructed us to do. Whether that be creating a family, which He instructed us to do, to basically be fruitful and to multiply. But that goes more beyond just having children. That goes also when you actually have businesses. When you end up establishing a business, it's not necessarily for you to just keep that business to yourself, right?
Right.
A business is not going to survive on its own, just from you saying, hey, I got a business, and that's it. You're going to have to learn how to actually have relationships with other people to bring them on board. You're going to need an accountant. You're going to need a person for bookkeeping. You're going to need a person that's going to be on the sales floor. You're going to need a person that's going to be a receptionist. You're going to need a person that deals with media. So therefore, it's showing you that you have to understand the power of relationships. A leader understands the power of relationship. A leader understands the origin and the element, in other words, to actually become a great leader, and then to also reproduce another leader by understanding these steps. So these things may seem like they're all over the place, but they actually come together to form one picture, which is to be a leader. When you look at the elements, if we go through each and every single one, most people will be confused with that. But the whole principle you need to understand is relationships is very important. The relationship between a proton, neutron, and electron. The relationship between one atom with another atom, which equals a compound right there, which is basically the relationship between one atom and another atom-based element, in other words, same thing, when it actually creates something more. Because you can't just have hydrogen, it's highly unstable, it's explosive. You can't just have oxygen. Oxygen by itself is poisonous to us. But when we actually blend those two together, we get H2O, which is water, which is the element that actually gives life. And if we understand the relationship that we as human beings have with water and things in existence, we'll understand the purpose and we'll understand the importance of life. Because our body consists of what? The majority of water. What? This planet consists of what? Majority of what? Water. The universe, it's been scientifically proven, consists of majority of what? That atom right there, which is the hydrogen and the oxygen. So when we look at this and we understand the importance of each and every person, when I look at people, I look at them as elements. I'm like, you're an element. You're needed for me to actually be able to survive and to sustain in this life. When I look at businesses, this business, you can't just have somebody just sitting behind a computer and saying, hey, I got a business. Okay, who's working, who's going to basically be delivering your supplies? You need somebody that deals with the warehouse, right? You don't need to hire workers that deals with the warehouse. You're going to have them packaging things and sending things off, shipping them off. You can't just have a person where they say, hey, I'm a driver and you don't need anybody else. But what about the people that's overseas? I need to establish a relationship with people that deals with aviation or their own airline service, or if they actually go around and they have boats, they have ships. We have to understand the importance of creating relationships, and that's really just the basics. And me trying to basically get everyone to see is, don't look at it from a scattered standpoint. I learned one of my weaknesses used to be where I'm constantly talking because there's so much information that's downloading and coming out, as you guys can see. But when you actually take a moment just to come to know who you are and not hope that I hope they do understand. That's what was going through my mind right now. I hope they can understand. I got to give all this information. But when you really just take a moment to breathe and simplify it and understand who you are and understand, well, if I know who I am, then most likely I have an understanding of who they are at the same time. I have a brain just like you guys have a brain. I have a body just like you guys have. I have a spirit, so therefore certain things that I'm speaking, whether it be just physically or if it's spiritually or mentally, I'm pretty sure you guys will get it, whether it's now or later down the line. And that's how I understand, by understanding myself as a person and me understanding myself when it comes to businesses to help bring people together collectively, just as the elements and the atoms do. That's just really what I'm about when it comes to things in life. Is to simply make it simple, but it's not that simple. And just to basically teach us to do the same thing over and over. When it comes to teaching and learning, when you actually start to learn, I have on the back one of the papers and you can take a look at it. This should be the last page where it says image and likeness. Exactly. At least got to stick to that part. We have image and likeness. Human/attribute. God/attribute. Name, body, soul, spirit. So I can actually wrap this up for sure. For God, you have, for my belief, which is God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Those three equaling that one. Name, body, soul, spirit equaling that one. Me. Being. Then you also have learning. Learning consists of listening, so you can actually be able to answer and apply, to teach and to reproduce. Those three steps right there, that's basically what learning consists of. When you look at the part where it has home and it has business. Home is the first business that should be developed. Second part, a business is a reflection of how your home is running and operating. That's how it really should be. When you actually understand yourself as a person, relationships, and then reproducing and building more and more and more and more relationships. You just keep on reproducing, but you want to also make sure that you do have structure. If you don't know who you are, you can't have an effective relationship, no matter who you are.
True.
You have to understand who you are at the core. You have to understand your inner element. You have to understand, if I throw certain elements, like more hydrogen on on a fire, it's going to go out of control. If I add more oxygen on that fire, it's going to be out of control. You have to learn how much to apply. You have to know how much of you, or how many certain words that you want to be able to utilize before you spark an argument, before you spark a person who's just going to become angry and just outrageous. You have to be mindful, learning to master your inner element. And that's why I love to utilize water, because when we look at water, water is a very important element to me, especially dealing with martial arts. Most people know what Bruce Lee says, basically. With water, when you put water into a cup, it becomes a cup. That's one of the most important statements that I actually heard before. But when you dissect and you look deeper into it, when you look at the element of water, water has three states that you have. You have a gas, solid, and liquid. Once again, the power of three right there. When it's in a gaseous state, usually before it gets to a gaseous state, it's in a liquid state. Liquid state is used to transport. The liquid state, the molecules, they go over, around, and under each other. So therefore, anything that's applied to it, it merges with it. Anything that's applied to it, it takes on that shape. So therefore, water is really flexible. Therefore, water knows what water is. So it knows if I'm put in this situation, I have to be this way. I have to take on this particular shape. If something's applied to me, I have to basically go out flexible and mold it to this shape. But when the elements outside of that comes into place, such as if it gets too hot, what does water do? When it becomes to boil and it reaches a boiling point, it evaporates. That's symbolic to us actually understanding when we're in heated situations in life, we don't have to always just necessarily stay there. Sometimes our mind and our spirit, sometimes we have to learn to transition into a different state, a different elemental state by transitioning into a gaseous state where it evaporates, it goes into the clouds. And then eventually, once it cools down enough, time is passed on, you can collectively gather your thoughts together, and then what happens? You have the clouds that come together, and then what happens? Water returns to the earth, and usually whenever water comes back, it's usually because it's what? It's hot. So it has to cool off the atmosphere. Therefore, it's cooling off the situation that you just left, so you can actually cool it down. And now what happens when it rains? The earth naturally cleans itself. When it rains, it cleans the atmosphere. It cleans the air from all the pollution and chaotic things that's actually going out here, from people smoking hair canisters and driving with the gasoline and all that stuff. It cleans the atmosphere. It cleans the grounds. If there's ground that's actually dirty on it, you have chalk, you have graffiti or whatever. Water, it washes that away. That's what the rain does. But the last state that I utilize is when water takes on a solid state. When it reaches to a freezing point, it condenses. It becomes a solid. Now, when it becomes solid, how many of you actually took a cup of water just to cool off like a drink or whatever? Usually, what happens to the ice cube when you put it in a cup? It starts to melt, but before it starts to melt, what happens? No, it floats. When it's in a solid state, usually most people are familiar looking at something when it's a solid, like, oh, that's a solid person, or this thing is solid. But solid doesn't always mean that it's dense to where it sinks to the bottom. Therefore, water, when it's actually in that state, it's cool. It knows what it is. It's also in a state where it also preserves at the same time. Most people are not familiar with that. But when it's there, when it's first in a solid state and it's applied to something, it floats. So it goes with the flow, in other words. And then when that situation, if it's too heated, it begins to melt, but it also cools off. So therefore, it's expanding itself back to its natural state. Therefore, taking on the situation to bring about its own control, in other words. So when we look at that, that's really what I'm about, is looking at these different states of beings when it comes to being an element and knowing who you are at your core and understanding it. Just look at the elements around us and we'll see how they actually carry the keys that we need to be able to unlock the key potential that lies dormant within ourselves, and also to establish relationships. And that's what this world really needs more of, is healthy relationships. But in order to do that, we have to understand the science that's behind it. Just as I explained to you in the beginning, it's a little rocky, all these different elements. So over 150 different elements. You're like, where is she going with this? But then when you eventually bring it together and add structure to it, which has to be established, then you actually understand, like, wow, there's just three states of being. He was all over the place, like gaseous, like the gaseous state.
We're with you.
Bring it together, liquid. Now I'm leaving off as a solid, and I'm transitioning back into the liquid, so I can transition off the stage.
That was deep.
All right, mine's up, y'all. So y'all give it up for Elegance Champagne. One of my cars on the ground over there. Could you pick them up for me? I don't know if I dropped them or whatever. And we have one more, our very last person who is going to be teaching us about, I want to say, is it transformational mindfulness? Okay, transformational mindfulness. Because it's one thing to be mindful, but it's a whole nother thing to have an intention to be transformed in the midst of your mindfulness. And he's going to take us through an exercise and a few little things, and then we're going to wrap it up and get out of here. I had a visualization for you guys to do, but I know we're running out of time, so it's all good, because in September I'm going to be doing a prosperity brunch, and I expect to see all of you guys there. And we're going to get it all together. So we're going to ask for my bro. It's my brother, y'all. My brother from another mother, for real, for real. Y'all clap it up. But, well, I don't know if he want to be called Neo, because he part of the Matrix. He be mixing stuff and all of that. So y'all give it up for Neo Geo.
All right, hello, everyone. Thank you for staying this long, allowing for the opportunity for all these amazing people to share their story and share their gifts and abilities here, because I'm humbled to be around such amazing souls that have the hearts of gold and are really just trying to make a difference for themselves and their community. Because honestly, that's what it comes down to. You know, what can you really do to make a difference within yourself, your life, and the lives around you? It's all a choice. All right? In every moment of your life, in every situation, it's all a choice. You choose that relationship. You chose that job. You chose to leave. You chose to get fired. All right? And until you're able to truly empower yourself and knowing that all of this is the making of you and being aware and mindful that this is the reality that you have created, then you'll just be left by anything that's coming to take your attention away. And right now, the most precious things anyone has right now is their mind. Which is why there's a war. There's an attack on your mind to pull your attention, to take you out from yourself, right? To tell you that happiness is over there. Happiness is once you obtain this, or once you get over here and buy that. How many people have you known got to that point and are still miserable, are still sad, are still slowly dying inside? That's not it. Because I've been there. I've been at the top. I fell down. I got up again. And I fell down. That's what it's about.
That's life.
So don't get too comfortable. Because the blessings that you have right now may not be there tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And the idea of being mindful and transformational mindfulness is to take it to the next level. Because right now, this second, this attention, this observation is all we have in this moment in life. Any one of us can walk over there and get hit by a car. Or get a bad phone call and get a heart attack. Life is not a given. It's not guaranteed. It may not be there tomorrow. And yesterday didn't really make a difference. Because you got here today, and this is what matters. So, as we all touched on earlier, it starts in the mind. It starts in your thoughts. Being absolutely aware of every moment that this occurs, every situation. Why were you thinking that? Why did you react that way? Who am I repeating? Who am I trying to be like? Where did I learn that? What self-limiting belief am I having right now that is blocking me from my blessings? Because it all starts there, at the belief systems you hold and the conditioning programs that you've allowed into yourself, into your soul. And we all sit here and identify, thinking that, okay, well, this is who I am, this person, this identity, this job, this body, this face, this voice. And we're not. We're all eternal beings. We're all one with life. We're all aspects of God. And until you empower yourself in saying that I will be the creator today, so I can live a better tomorrow, you're going to still keep living in yesterday. Or living someone else's dream. Trying to help them reach theirs while yours is on the back burner. And like I said, I came from the top and fell down quite a few times. Just February, I got out of a year-long depression. And a relationship that wasn't the best for myself. I'm not one to say anything bad about it. It was all an experience. I learned, I grew. And it's actually the ones that you're able to truly look back on and say, if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't be who I am today. If it wasn't for this person to bring out all the ugliness within myself, I wouldn't have known that it was there. Because you all like to live in a facade of thinking that this is an image that we're supposed to be. But who's truly authentic within themselves? Who can look in the mirror and say, I'm happy with what I'm doing right now. I'm happy with the decisions I made yesterday. I'm happy with the influence I had on this person. So from your thoughts, it leads into your words, what you say, the contents of the communications you have with people. What is that aligned with? What are you learning? What are you teaching? If you're not learning or teaching, then what are you doing? You're wasting space. You're talking a bunch of BS that you heard on the TV, on the news. All of it is meant to distract you, to keep you afraid, to keep you paranoid, to keep you fighting, keep you distracted, keep you sick and broke. Now, if they're able to do that, they control society. And it's all a little chess game that's being played right now. And we're the pawns. Until you decide to be the king of your board. Until you decide to have your own little army for your vision and your dreams. Find your queen, find your rook, Find the castle. It'll come. But you have to walk in that path yourself before you expect anyone to be right there with you. So from there is your habits. What are your rituals? What do you do every day? The first thing you wake up, you get on the phone and see what the news is, what the craziest thing Trump has done now, what other war we're about to be brought into, what the fight is happening in our backyard, what new drug is sickness. Because that's what people do. When do you take time for yourself? When do you take time to sit down and see where am I at right now in my life? How do I feel? Let me take some space. Let me turn the TV off. Let me put the phone down. Let me stop trying to distract myself with other people, other intentions, other BS. Let me sit down and just be. Let me take that moment and allow for that silence and that quiet to enter your spirit. Because when you leave space in between all these crazy running thoughts, all these past traumas and abuse, all these stresses and worries, all this drama, when you allow there to be space in between that, that's where God enters. That's when you're able to hear that voice. That's usually a whisper. That's constantly suppressed by everything around us. Because that's the point. They know we're powerful. They know we're gods. They know we can create. But we're all divided and afraid, and that's what they want. So it takes that space, it takes that awareness to step to the side and look at things. Wow, what am I really doing with myself? Am I living to the best of my capabilities? Am I happy? Do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel like I made a difference today? Did I touch somebody's heart today? If you don't have that each day of your life, how are you living? Are you just going through the motions? Just thinking that, well, it's going to be there tomorrow. That job is going to be there. That relationship is going to be there. They're still going to love me. Everything comes and goes. Everything outside of ourselves is just a form that passes by. Just another object that comes and evaporates. The trauma and the abuse you were living yesterday, or a month from now, or a year ago, whatever it is, it may not be there tomorrow.